everybody. Welcome back to Men Need to Be Heard. It is Dan, and today we're going to have a good one. So, as you know, if you've followed me at all, we have conversations that most people are too afraid to touch. And today, I'm going to be joined by someone who's been speaking her mind for decades now. She makes me look like a choir boy. I'm going to be honest, all right? It's Dr. Gilda Carle, and she's a relationship expert, a media personality, and the author of an unapologetic new book called Real Men Don't Get Woke. Don't Go Woke. Sorry, I misspoke that. And you may have seen her. I'm trying to remember off the top of my head, but I think like Today's Show, Fox News, Inside
Sally
Edition.
Jesse,
There we go. And you, I will
Howard
say,
Stern, everyone.
you are known. I'm going to bring you. Go ahead and bring you on. You are known for cutting through the bullshit. That's the way I was kind of going to say it, and
I
telling it
hope
like
so.
it is. So, welcome to the show. How are you, by the way?
I am just fine. I'm happy as can be. I'm happy to be talking to you because you
Oh,
have a title of your podcast that is magnificent. Men need to be heard, and nobody understands how badly. And
that
that's why I wrote my book.
that makes me feel good because you want to know how I came up with that title? It literally just popped in my head. It was one of those happy circumstances. I'm like sitting, all right, what am I going to title it? Men need to be heard. Boom, that was it. And that's because it fits exactly what I'm trying to do. And by the way, what you're trying to do, right? One of the things that I admire about you, because I've followed you for some time now, is that you kind of tell it, like I said, tell it like it is. And
Yeah.
in the book, which I was just reading a couple of weeks ago, just finished it, I got to say, you called men out in a good way, right? For because they own some responsibility, and we'll get into all that. But you also talked about how modern society's basically trying to soften and shame men, silence them, and one of the things that I've often talked about is that's partially men's fault. So we're going to get into all that, but before we do, why don't you just tell the audience a little bit about yourself, and we'll go from there.
Well, people probably remember me from daytime television. I was on all the talk shows. And I was doing that for years and years. Before then, I was in corporate America from Wall Street to Main Street, training executives in how to be street smart. And how did I do that? All in their projection and their presentations. Why did I do that? Is because I started my career as a mere 20-year-old young woman teaching in the South Bronx.
Oh,
It was the worst neighborhood in the world. And I got kids to read when they were illiterate. I couldn't do the same for their parents who said, "What are they doing all day long reading newspapers?" But I got kids to read. And we were told these are hopeless kids, nothing's going to happen with them. And while I was teaching them, they were in turn teaching me about street smarts. I was a good kid raised in a middle class home, figuring, okay, I'll mind my P's and Q's and do what I'm supposed to do as a nice young lady. But the kids taught me street smarts that I began to take to corporate America to help train the executives who were under my watch. And boy, the bottom lines just crept up, 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 got better and healthier. And I would go into one company's department, and other departments said, "We want you to do what you did with them to come in here and do for us." And before you knew it, I was doing all of this stuff, making good money. And then television discovered me, and the rest is history.
yeah. I mean, you've been. I remember. I don't want to say 30 years ago. I hate to age both of us, but you were
No,
on
no,
a lot of the big ones, right? Like you
no.
mentioned
I was
Sally, Jesse
everything.
Raphael. Yeah.
I was on
Um,
Sally and I was on everybody's show.
yeah.
And then Dateline and all the news shows and Howard Stern. And I was everywhere. And it was fun. I didn't even know that it was a business. And then
It's-
Fox, 20th Century Fox came to me and said, whenever you are on, people stay. They don't change the channel. And I didn't know that. I didn't know what I was doing. I was just having fun on air and being natural and myself. Nothing was scripted. And they said, what we're going to do is give you a show of your own. I said, what? I don't have an entertainment attorney or an agent or anything, but I'll get them. Don't worry. And that got me moving in a whole other direction. So, I mean, things really happened very, very interestingly. I was totally unprepared, but you get prepared as time goes on, and and here I am now. After a while, the talk shows died down.
Well,
There were no talk shows
they're
left.
dying like crazy. I mean,
Yeah,
across the
well,
board.
what is on? There's entertainment shows, and that's about it. And there is no show right now that is telling men and women how to communicate better, how to save themselves from suicide, which is what I wrote about in my book. This is my 19th book. This is the book. Real Men Don't Go Woke. It's my 19th because I was talking to women all along. And I wrote one book when I was the Love Doc on MTV. I wrote one book called Don't Lie on Your Back for a Guy Who Doesn't Have Yours. And the women were coming to me and saying, well, I gave him everything and still he dumped me. Well, I said, maybe that's the problem. You gave away too much of yourself without giving anything to yourself. And then I started talking to the women, but recognizing in another sense that men could not have their backs because they didn't have their own. And I started watching the diminution of men in our culture. They became voiceless and spineless and unable to communicate how they felt about anything. Wives were coming to me and saying, he doesn't talk, he doesn't express himself. And men were coming to me and saying, I can't open my mouth. Every time I do, I'm cut off, I'm I'm crushed,
It's
I'm castigated,
or it's
I'm
weaponized against them. I mean, I hear the
against
same
them.
things, right? It's probably the number one thing I hear from men who talk to me about their relationships is that I'm not allowed to talk.
Not allowed.
I'm not allowed to share my thoughts. And I'll say to them, and I'm sure you say something similar. Well, why not, right? And inevitably, it comes down to, well, if I say anything, it's gonna come back at me. It might be she'll make it about her. It might be she'll weaponize it in
Still
some way.
remember.
Or a
And
big one that a lot of people don't talk about is she'll start spreading it to everyone else. And that, for a man, is the ultimate deal breaker. You take his private thoughts, feelings, whatever, and tell your girlfriends or what they're doing now, putting it all over social media. I postulate that will end your relationship permanently, and there is no coming back from it. I
well,
don't care how
P.S.
much.
Dan, it should end your
I
relationship.
agree. I agree.
How dare somebody in the intimacy of a romance or even a make-believe romance, something you think is a romance, how dare somebody take your information and throw it out there for the world to see?
And yet, that's exactly what you're seeing over and over again on TikTok and Instagram, all the places, right? Is this has become a new norm for, I'll say, women in general, but especially the younger ones, the 20, 30, up to 40-year olds. They will put it all out on blast, and they don't realize that their husband may not say a word to them about it. Most likely won't, which is a fault, by the way, of the men. They should be saying
Yes,
something.
it is. But he
But
may not even know.
that you beat
And,
me to it. Oh, you're good. You're
and
good.
everybody's snickering behind his back.
That's the point I was going to make. Is women will very commonly block their husband or boyfriend from being able to see them. So the only way he's going to find out is if his buddy or his coworker or somebody in the family sees it and tells him about it, which is even more of a betrayal. And yet that's where we're at. And I go again. I say to men, when that happens, you need to really seriously sit and think. Do you want to stay with someone like that? I wouldn't. There'd be zero tolerance.
I would never.
It's just the ultimate disrespect. But let's kind of dovetail into, because this is
Okay.
some of the things that you talk about in the book, right?
Yeah.
And let's be honest, the title's pretty bold, right? Real men don't go woke. I love the
Well,
title.
let me tell you about this.
Yeah, go
Let me
ahead.
tell you about this, the title. It had another name. The book had another name to it, and I just kept writing, writing, writing. I was doing so much research. Nobody had done any of this research, and I couldn't believe it because I looked around to see what was published, and nobody had talked about any of this stuff. And so it had a different title. Being a New Yorker, I knew a really good agent, and I went to my agent and I said, I think this is your next bestseller.
Hmm.
And she looked at it, she said, I'm afraid they will not publish an anti woke book. I said, what? Why? Isn't this freedom of the press? And she said, well, the people who are in positions of editors in the big five publishers are all young women and they are all woke.
Hmm.
And I said, well, isn't that a kick in the head? Because the men are not. The men are moving toward conservatism.
Right.
And the women are coming to me and saying, what am I supposed to do? I can't find a guy.
Hmm.
Well, baby, why don't you start cutting them off and castigating them? That might be the first start. And they don't want to hear that. So anyway, so the book, they would not publish the book, and that's why I subtitled it, The Book They Would Not Publish, The Truth That Must Be Told. And I exposed in the first two pages, I exposed the publishing industry. And I said, guess what? This is what happened. And I have a history of writing and getting paid uh, uh, good money to write my books, but they would not touch this. I said, fine, I'm going to publish it myself. And I found somebody that was above a vanity press, but somebody who worked with me. And the finished copy is, I am so proud of the way it looks, the way it feels, and it looks like a man's manual. And men have been reading it. So I'm so proud of that. But women have been reading it too. And I'm not easy on women either. At the very end, I say, and this is what we have to do.
Hmm.
And I'm not kidding around.
Yeah, one of the things that I loved about the book as I was reading it is there were times it pissed me off. And that, you know what? That's a good thing, right? Because that means you're touching me. You're hitting me, right? If you're not hitting me, I'm not getting any benefit out of it. And that's why I'm like, that's why I got to have you on, right? Because that's the beauty of it, right? So many people gravitate towards, I'll call it self help books, whatever terminology you want to use, but they want to be told, they want to hear what they want to hear, not what they need to hear, right? That's a phrase I use all the time. I'm going to tell you what you want to hear or what you need to hear, not what you want to hear. And you did that for me, all right? And I'm not, people watching, I'm not just saying that because she's sitting in front of me on the screen, okay? I genuinely felt this. There were times that I had to set the book down. I'm like, right? But
Oh, wow. I'm so glad.
but when I did that, right, there was one time. So I was sitting out in my front patio reading it, and it was, I forget exactly what you said, but I'm like, put the book down. I went for a walk, but as I was walking, I'm like, damn it, she's right. Right. And really self reflecting for not just myself, but my audience. And that I gained more perspective out of that than
Wow.
anything I could gain from other
More
books.
self perspective.
Self perspective, and
Wow.
understanding also, right? And that's the key. And that's why I want people to go get this book because, in a matter of speaking, it's an inspiration to me, right? Because, all right, you've kind of triggered me to go, I got to talk about some of these things too, right? Maybe I'll come at it from a little bit different angle, but you hit the nail on the head on a lot of things. And we're going to dive into some of them. But I want to
Right.
ask you, you know, you kind of touched on this already, but was there a specific like instance or thing that triggered you to write this book? And then ultimately, what was the message you were trying to say with that?
Well, I am single now, and I have been dating different men. And all the men that I date that I'm attracted to are men who have achieved things. Because I'm always looking to learn from everybody I am out with. And I listen to their stories. I listen to the times they were crushed. I listen to the time that they picked themselves up and started all over again. And that was inspirational to me. But as I have gone on and on in dating, I'm seeing more and more dysfunction. And I'm not hanging around. And that's what that's what the statistics are showing, that the women are just fed up. We're not hanging around. If you don't show up the way that's good and healthy for us,
Hmm.
we're out of there. And I found myself siding with a lot of the women said, enough of this. I don't want to do that.
And this is I want to explore this with you if you don't mind, because I see it from the other side. Men are saying the same thing, by the way, right? But
Oh,
what's
I'm sure they are.
but here's what's interesting about what you're saying. I think, and I want to get your opinion on this. This is something, and I'm fascinated by what you were just saying. As a woman, we're probably about the same age. I'm not going to out your age. As a woman in that age group, and as a man in that age group, I would not date right now. I am married, so it's not something. But
You don't have to.
if I were single, I would absolutely not date right now. There is no way in hell I would, right? And the reason is, and I want to. This is where I want to go with it. I have often said the real men, quotes, real men, the good men, however phrase you want to use it, the ones women want have left the dating market. What's left are they're called commonly the Chads and Tyrones, right? The players in our age group, right? We call it players. And the let's call them woke men, right? The I will just they're commonly called simps. I'm not a big fan of that term, but that type of thing. So what's left for the dating pool for women is the two extremes. And in the middle, the guys that most women want and would benefit being with, they've checked out. And I
Or
suspect
they're
this,
married. Or they're married
or
and
they're
they're,
married, yeah. And I
or they're good
suspect it's this,
fathers.
yeah, or
You
I
see,
suspect it's the same for women also. What's your thoughts on all that?
I absolutely agree with you. I'm hearing a lot from a lot of men who are saying, I don't date anymore. I am not interested. I don't want to deal with this anymore. It's too much. But I'm hearing the same from women.
Hmm.
I don't want to be involved. There's just too much. They're just driving me crazy. They're telling me lies. There's the people pleasers out there. They want to please you. And you can see right through them if you're perspicacious enough. And you say, what am I doing here? I don't even know this person. And it gets to all of us that we have been told a lie about who this person is. We have been told stories that didn't exist so that the guy can pump himself up looking better than he actually is.
Hmm.
And they've been lied to so much. You can tell me anything, but if I hear you in a lie, I'm out of there. I'm booking.
And
I'm not hanging
and
out.
I'd argue you should be, right? And that's exactly what I say to men, right? And it's exactly what men say. And that's so interesting to me because when you get on social media, which is a cesspool, let's be honest, and I say that as one who's on there, right? With I don't know how many 100,000 followers I have, but it's a theme that is running across all of it that people aren't seeing, which is both men and women are saying the same things, but
Yes,
yet we're not communicating with each other.
we're missing each
Well,
other very,
exactly.
very drastically.
And it's leading to, I have said many times, it's going to ultimately lead to the destruction of our society because as men and women check out, once men go, here's the difference, and you can disagree with me, and I kind of hope you do. Women, I think, are more prone to come back to it. I think men generally, I'm generalizing, men, once they walk, they aren't ever coming back. What's your thoughts on
Women
that?
are nesters, and we don't like to leave relationships because we enjoy being in the nest. But the most recent finding I saw is that men need relationships more than women do.
And I would
So
agree with
that
you.
may keep men around longer. However, it's very difficult for a woman to say, I've had it, I'm out of here. However, yet, the women are the ones who initiate divorce because they've had enough. So go figure that.
Well, do you think so? I'm loving where we're going with all this because these are common themes that I hear from people all the time, right? And you talk about women are nesters, and I can agree with you completely that men want to be in relationships and are far better off in them. I've spoken many times that I think COVID was a game changer for men. We all got isolated. We all got left alone. Men were trapped in their houses just like women were. men suddenly figured out, wait a minute, this is not as bad as I thought it was going to be. They kind of learned a little bit, right? And I hear this consistently from guys. You know what? I don't need a woman in my life. I'm actually happier without them. Now, that's how they're feeling, and I totally respect and understand that. But the other side of it is long term, that's not good for men or women. It goes both ways. And that's, I think, something everybody's missing.
Well, the health statistics show us that men in relationships live longer and they're happier, but women can survive fine without men. Now, why has that been the case? Why has that been allowed to be the case that we can survive without you guys?
Well, I think, see, I'm going to disagree with you slightly on that. And I'll tell you why.
Well,
I,
those are the statistics. I
right,
don't
but
think
I've
it's
looked
true
at the
for every
statistics.
woman.
So I look at how I'm like you, right? I'm one of those geeky types that I go and read what they did, right? I don't look at the summation. I look at everything they did to get the data. And, when you look at them, there was a study, actually multiple ones, that came to the conclusion you just mentioned. But here's the thing that's the problem with it. They lumped in divorced men as single men. Now, if you go to a man who's going through a divorce, and you know as well as I do, because you talk about this all the time, right? They're not going to be happy. Well, if you're lumping them in
That's
with the
crazy time for everybody.
right, so if you're lumping them in as single men, it's going to skew the data. You take them out, the data changes, I think. And I would love nothing better than see a study that actually does that. I can't
I
find
haven't
one.
seen one, but if I find one, I'll send it to you,
I would
Dan.
love it because I think in general, and again, some of this is speculation, but a lot of it is what I'm hearing. And I understand that, it's not nothing scientific and all that, and I have a certain audience and all that. But when you hear it tens, if not hundreds of thousands of times a month, there's something there. And I'd be interested to see long term where this goes because, and I don't think it's going to be good for anybody, but I think men are walking away. The make towel, is the phrase. Um, and I don't think women are realizing that once men go, they don't come back because they're all asking themselves the same thing.
Yeah, but
Go
there's a
ahead.
problem.
Go ahead.
There's a problem. There's a problem because they're finding other substitutes for
That's
not
the
having a
problem.
relationship, and
Yes,
that is a terrible problem. They're sitting and watching porn. They're doing drugs. They're getting drunk. They're doing all kinds of dysfunctional things.
I
Their
agree.
their anger is rampant. Their loneliness is rampant. Their depression is rampant. And so, if they don't nip this in the bud, soon they will be one of the suicidal statistics. And that's my concern. I had to write this book for that. I had to because our men are dying. Men are 4 times more likely to commit suicide than are women. Why is that? They can't tell anybody, they can't tell their buddies. Theoretically, the men are in competitive mode. You had gyms, you understand this. They were in competitive mode with their buddies. They're not going to sit with their buddy and say, I am so depressed. They'll go to their buddy and say, hey, let's have a couple of drinks and let's go out and get laid. Let's go do this. Let's go do that. They are all substitute behaviors for what's deep inside here that they cannot and will not express because if they do, they are called on the carpet for being too sensitive. A wuss. Well, isn't that what is described as woke?
The very definition of it.
So that's certainly my definition. And as people are
Eh,
screaming, it's interesting. People scream at me, and it's often, usually women who will say, why'd you call it woke? That's a very bad term. I said, according to who? Jane Fonda? That's not a bad term to me. The Jane Fonda crew believes that woke means we love everybody. Well, you sure ain't loving the men when you are female and putting the men down. And you see, single women have to deal with the repercussions of what that man has felt. So
Oh,
I,
yeah.
as a single woman, are hearing, "Oh, do you want to go for dinner? Yeah, that would be nice." Well, sure. All women are prostitutes anyway. That's the kind of attitude we're getting back.
Hmm.
You can't say yes, you can't say no. You're screwed any which way.
And that's the point I try and make often with my videos and all that, right? And is that, you know, people who follow me know that I do a live show called Boy Meets Squirrel with Lindsay every week. She's a woman who speaks out like you on behalf of men and on men's issues and calls them out. The amount of vitriol and hatred that she gets from other women
Women. Yeah.
far
It's
exceeds any she
it's
gets from men.
women. To the point that when I first came out with this book, I went to a men's group and I said, "How would you like me to talk about the book?" And the men's group said, "No, this is only for men." Because I was immediately sized up as the enemy.
And she's run into the same thing, right? Is she talked about it recently. She went to a local group, men's group, and they wouldn't let her in, so to speak,
Duh.
because they didn't
Yeah.
trust her. Now, I understand parts of that. I get
And
it,
I do too.
but it's counterproductive to men, right? And that's why I always say to guys, one of the things as a men's rights advocate, or talking about men's and boys issues and trying to get them addressed, women are our biggest allies. They do 10 times the work men will ever dream of doing. But yet, when we get one like yourself or Lindsay or whom I can list a whole bunch of them, we treat them the same way we treat the ones who are actually our enemies. And that is
Which is
so
very
wrong.
stupid.
It's
That's
wrong.
that's it's counterproductive. Uh, I keep getting this is amazing since I've become spokesperson for the International Council for Men and Boys that you belong to also. I have gotten from all the interviews that I'm doing, men coming back to me and saying, "How'd they get you, a woman, to be the spokesperson?" And it just seems so brilliant of Dan, who is our leader, to have put me in that position because it's an added attractor factor for people to say, "What is this? I've got to listen to this. This is too crazy."
Right, right.
So great. Give us more of your attention because we're talking about how to get rid of the suicide rate, how to make men more positive in our environment so that they have longevity rather than kill themselves.
Well, let's kind of explore that a little bit. So, one of the biggest themes that I picked up on as I was reading the book, I think it's safe to say, it kind of is underlining in throughout the whole thing, in a very good way, I might add, is how you kind of talk about how men give away their power. Right. It could be in terms of financial, emotional, social, within relationships themselves. And that was undercurrent. You may not have overtly said it, but it was there all the way through, and I was picking up on that,
Always.
right?
Yeah, you're
And,
right.
and it's something that I address myself many times, and I believe actually this is the main issue and why we are struggling with everything as a society. So, kind of taking from that, how would you share your thoughts and feelings in general about that, and more precisely, what can men do about it, both individually and as
Well,
a group?
Well, I look at this sociologically because women traditionally have given away their power. And before I ended up on all those talk shows, women were allowing themselves to be locked in their homes by their husbands. And they were thinking that, well, I have to be subservient if I want to keep this man. And the talk shows for the lower middle class, the middle class, meant more to them than we will ever be given credit for, because that was an outlet for them to see other women in their situation and other men in the situation that they had found themselves. And they saw that this is no way to sustain a life or a marriage.
Mm-hmm.
And so they started to make changes. And I'm very proud of the work I did in those days on all the people's talk shows.
Mm-hmm.
And then when I was offered an opportunity to have my own talk show, thanks to 20th Century Fox, then I had a real spokesperson's job of letting people know. Unfortunately, the person the Hollywood mogul overseeing that whole show suddenly died, and all his shows fell apart. So I was just continuing to appear on everybody else's shows, and I didn't have the freedom that I have right now. For example, with you,
Hmm.
I didn't have that freedom to talk as I would have had I had my own show, but maybe I wouldn't have. You know, God works in mysterious ways. Maybe I wouldn't have because the networks were always on top of the show hosts, saying to them, well, you have to do more of this, and you have to do more of that, and you have to do more of that.
Hmm.
And one of the executives at one of the networks, who I won't mention, said to me, well, now, if your ratings, Dr. Gilda, if your ratings go down, are you willing to shoot midgets out of a cannon to rise, to get those ratings to rise? I just looked at this guy and said, I'm a legitimate PhD. If I have to resort to that, then I shouldn't be on air.
That's why I don't have a ton of respect for Dr. Phil because he would do that, right? To a certain point. I mean, he's got some great stuff, but he
The
plays,
pressures are
and I
just
understand that.
tremendous.
Yeah,
And if you want to stay on the air and continue your message, you have to play the game. And they
exactly.
look, they have a business. They have a business to run. They know this rates, that doesn't. So we're going to do those stories and not the others.
And that plays through in the news media also, right? It's
Oh,
the
of course.
classic. If it bleeds, it leads, of course. But
Of course.
I've talked about this many times myself, and you know more about it than I do. But I have remember a few years back, I've done local TV, not to the level you have, but and radio, but it's eyeballs and ears, right? Are people going to watch? Are they going to stay watching? Are they going to listen? Are they going to stay listening? You're seeing it on social media now. The people that get pushed are the people that have a longer watch time, right? It all comes down to that, and there's never ending pressure to fulfill whatever it takes to get those eyeballs and ears. And it may be like I know news anchors that sit there and read things that I've written by corporate that they want to vomit while they're saying them, but they don't have any
Yes,
choice, right?
I know those news anchors, and some of them, I don't know how they look in the mirror at night.
I
I personally could not do that. So maybe everything, well, it's not maybe. God works in mysterious ways. It's perfect. Our life, our journey, everything that we're at, all the heartaches that we've had, everything makes sense. If instead of asking, what is your problem? What is my problem? Instead, I say to myself, where is my power? And so, whether it's male or female that I'm talking to, it doesn't make a difference. I want my clients, and on my website, people sign up to get consultations with me. And I ask them, where is your power? And so many people have said, nobody's ever asked me this question. And let me tell you, Dan, I counsel heads of companies, heads of countries, and heads of households. So I run the gamut.
Mhm.
They find me. Wherever they find me, they find me. And they come to me for support. And that's what I give them. I don't tell them this is right, this is wrong. But I go through because I'm a strategist.
Mhm.
If you do X, Y, Z, P, Q, R may happen. Choose your poison.
Mhm.
They determine what it is they want to do, but they have to know what the options are. And most people are so frantic, doing so much of this and so much of that, they're not thinking about their next moves and how to strategize this for their optimal health.
Well, let's dive into that a little bit because I agree with you. So, one of the things that I often think about and talk about is how, and you talk about it in the book a lot, men get stuck, right? They don't think about themselves. And then when they confront someone like me or you, and we kind of force them to think, it scares them, right? Like, because I coach men too, right? And I my niche with coaching is guys that are going through divorces in family court. I don't give them legal advice. I'm kind of like their sounding board, and I tell them
And they
like it.
need that.
Yeah, and I tell them like it is. I am beyond blunt and brutal. And I make that very clear up front. And one of the things I often talk about is you need to stop being afraid to confront your emotions and deal with them.
Oh,
Stop trying to please everybody else. In a general sense, stop putting women on pedestals because they really hate that ultimately if you do too much of it.
well, what does that do? That sets the man,
Exact
sets the woman up here, and then she has to look down at the man. So
exactly.
this is man, is the man going to be happy with that? No, and no
Never.
one would be.
And they ultimately when they're going through that divorce and I start talking with that and make them confront these feelings, there's a lot of different responses, but most of them start healing at that point because it's forcing them to face the reality. And ultimately, why either she walked away or they walked away or need to, right?
Well, that's so interesting because I was on a radio show. I had a radio show in New York. And this man called in. He said, "I just got divorced. I don't know what to do. Where can I meet women?" I said, "How long are you divorced?" He said, "About a month."
Oh,
I
no.
said, "You just," I
Two
said, "No,
years minimum, 2 years.
no, no." Well, I say 9 months. So
Okay, fair
the
enough.
amount of time to have a baby, because that's what they might remember. But I say, "You shouldn't be dating now." He said, "What do you mean?" I said, "Look, you have to take apart how this all happened, how you all, the two of you came together, because that's essential, and also how you started to unravel. You have got to figure this out. Because if you don't, I promise you, you will repeat the same efforts with a different body in a different woman." And he was so pissed off. He said, "Wait a minute. You mean I should put myself on ice for 9 months?" I said, "Well, if you don't, you're just going to show yourself as a repetitive jerk because you're going to do this again and again." He hung up on me.
Hey fans, I just wanted to take a quick break from the show to remind you just how much we here at Men Need to Be Heard truly appreciate and value your support. And we'd like to ask you to do us a little favor. It won't cost you a dime, and it'll only take a few seconds out of your day. Could you take a moment to give us that like, give us that thumbs up on the video, and even share it with your friends? Doing so will help us to spread the word and continue to raise awareness on the issues that men and boys face in today's modern world. And we'd love to hear what you have to say on today's topic. So don't forget to comment down below and let us know how we're doing. Your input and feedback means the world to us, and it helps us to continue bringing great guests and even more content each and every week. And don't forget to subscribe to the channel and hit that notification bell so you don't miss an episode. It's the best way to stay up to date with all of our latest discussions, interviews, and deep dives into the issues men and boys face. It also helps the channel to grow so that we can continue to raise even more awareness on the issues. So hit that subscribe button and become part of the Men Need to Be Heard community. All right, that's it for now. Back to the show. And that's the
On
problem,
here.
right? It's exactly what guys do. And I will tell you, I'm a complete hypocrite, okay? Because I met my current wife 4 months after my second wife and I split up, right? But here's the difference. That marriage was ending for years beforehand. So I had already gone through the healing process, right? And this is what I say to guys. I knew when I ultimately left the reasons it failed. And this is, I will never knock my second wife. She was an amazing woman. We just weren't meant to be married. It's that simple, right? And that
That was your
happens.
second wife?
That was my second. My first one was a disaster. I don't want to
You're
go there.
really too young.
Right. But my second wife is an amazing woman. I will never say a bad thing about her because I don't think there's anything bad about her. It just, we weren't compatible, right? But I knew that for a couple of years ahead of time that, you know what, this is probably going to come to an end. And I worked on myself and healed myself and all that. So I'm the exception that proves the rule.
You
But
are the exception
and
because a lot of men will not work
they
on themselves.
never do it.
Well,
Forget.
that's why, that's why I added a chapter, a section in the book about getting rid of the toxicity that you hang on to. And it's just simple questions that you ask yourself. One reader called this is a love story for men. And I would like to think of it as
That's a
that.
pretty good analogy. I kind of like that one.
Yeah, I had not thought of that myself. And the reader said, this was not male bashing in any imagination. This is not negative towards men at all. You are caring. You are, I was so surprised. Look at I don't know if you had a chance to look at the reviews on Amazon. One guy was going to commit suicide when he picked up this book and he felt so much better about himself. Another guy from Brussels said, I know I'm a man, but all this nonsense about toxicity, this narrative I can't handle anymore. I am now declaring that I am non-binary. So we lost one of them to a flow of
Right.
male and
Right.
female. I mean, this is not a choice.
You know, it's interesting though about what you're saying about the book because I had the same thoughts, right? As I said at the beginning, there were times I was pissed off reading this book. That's a good thing because you were making me confront things in a way that needed to be confronted. And by that I mean you were this is your genius
Well, thank you.
in this book, all right? And again, let me reiterate, I am not saying that cuz she's sitting in front of me on the screen, okay? I am saying this cuz I genuinely believe it. You did something very, very, very few women can do. You spoke to men in that book like a men. You spoke like a man, right?
I think I have a lot of male in me. There's no
You
question.
do. You. I was going to say you were. I always say I'm in
And
touch
I'm
with my.
proud of it.
You should be because that by doing that and making me personally confront certain things, right? And in general, I think anyone who reads the book, that's as I said at the very beginning, that's where we learn and take stuff from. And you can take these little nuggets that you had. What are they called? Gildagrams? Is that what it was? You had
Kilograms,
your little
yeah.
Gilda in there, and a couple of them I actually have written down and saved, right? Because
One,
because
one
they're
reader said it was all about the kilograms.
it actually in a way I would agree with that, right? Because they're things that make me think, and these are things also because I talk to hundreds of men a week that I can then take forward and help them because you know it and I know it. We're as a society we're struggling with relationships and setting boundaries and all sorts of different things.
Boundaries, that's the big word.
Yeah. So I mean, how can I'm going to say specific to men here because this is where what we're talking to. How can we get men to set better boundaries, whether it's let's say relationships, friendships, work, wherever, society?
Oh, that's such an
How?
easy
All
answer.
right, go for it.
That's such an easy answer. You don't have to worry about setting boundaries when you know who you are and what your strengths are. So that if you say no, you know that you can walk away from this thing or the person can walk away from this thing and you're not going to fall apart because you know who you are and you stand by your values.
Mm-hmm.
That is extremely important. What I am finding today, however, and one of the reasons I wrote this book is because men have given it all away. Men have given up their boundaries to be pleasers. One man I went out with, very well educated, very bright. I love bright men. Um, I said, he said, I'm a people pleaser. And I said, that is not a
I was going to
complimentary
say ew.
description. As a matter of fact, that's also a deal crusher for me. Because if I don't know that you're honest and true, then what do I have to go on? All I have is what's in front of me.
Right. And
So, the things that men have taken for granted as being positive because they've been stroked by the idiot women around them. No, I want a man who's going to stand up to me and say, I don't agree with you. Fine, tell me. Tell me your impression so that I can learn. But with most people pleasers, they will not talk about how their attitudes are for fear that I might disagree. And if I disagree, I might then reject them. So if we're dealing with somebody whose rejection factor is so tenuous, I can't live with that.
that's an interesting point that you're making because and I'll tie it back to the work that I do. I get a lot of hate, as I know you do. But one of the things that women will throw at me is that I am so blunt. And if I just softened a little, no, I'm not.
Oh, get
Oh,
out of
I mean,
what?
it's like, no, I'm not going to do that. I'm going
Could
to
you
tell,
imagine somebody telling Donald Trump, "Why don't you soften it a little bit?"
or imagine them telling a woman that, right? And I've used that right back at them. Wait a minute. You want to be able to say anything to me, but you want me to soften what I say back to you. No, not going to do that, right? Because that disrespects you. If I think that you're so weak, this is what gets them every time. If I think you're so weak as a woman
That you
that
can't handle it.
that I have to soften myself because you can't handle it, what does
Right.
that really say about how I think about you? And
Or the
they
interaction. Or
exactly they get so
that's
mad at me when I do that, though. Oh my God, they lose their minds when I do that.
if anything, they ought to be impressed with that.
But they're
Impressed
not.
by
That's
your
the thing.
honesty, impressed by your translucent, transparent behavior with them, and they know that they can always trust. In a world where we can't trust anybody,
Right.
this is a gem.
But the thing is, like when I say this to guys, some of those are, well, that sounds like arrogant. It's not arrogance, okay? It's strength, to speak in guy terms, right? But I understand where they're coming from because that's what women would tell them. Because I've been told that you're an arrogant prick. I hear it all the time, right? It's not
They
arrogance.
don't call women that.
No, it's me saying what I think and feel. It's what not you personally, but what you women want us to do, and then when we do it, you get mad at us for it, right?
Well, that's
Which
because women don't know what they want. Okay,
There you
deal.
go. But that's why guys shut down, right? Whereas
Of
I
course.
won't. I will
Women
not
say
shut
they
down.
want this, but they don't. When they get it, they don't want it. They don't want to keep it, and and they're looking for greener pastures elsewhere. Come on, everybody. It's that honey and the honey money ratio that I talked about in the book. Men want honey, women want money, and men can't believe that women are walking off with all the cash, and they say, "Wait a minute. She didn't love me for me." Well, it's because of how you set it up.
Oh, I
And
agree. Yeah.
that is really bad. I know several men. I live in a very lovely area in Scottsdale, Arizona, and there are many men who have a lot of wealth, and they are always complaining. If I were to note what one major problem is that they complain about, is they're always complaining about the women are only after their money. Well, then why are you setting it up so that you look like a player? You look like you're in this fabulous car. Who are you trying to impress? All you need is four wheels to get around.
I'm
My
laughing.
God.
I'm laughing if you don't mind. I'm laughing because I do okay. I've done okay, right? I drive a 15-year-old minivan with the
You
paint
see?
peeling.
Here,
I buy my clothes.
ladies, listen to
I
this.
buy them from Walmart, Amazon. Maybe if I splurge a little and my wife drags me there, Target, right? I live in a 900, well, it's a little bit bigger now because I put an addition on it. It's 1,000 square foot, 2 bedroom, 2 bath house, right? I could have all I wanted. I could go buy a Porsche and pay cash right now. I will not do it. The true good men that have money will hide it. And it's for the reason you said, because I will tell you, Dr. Gilda, that I have so many women that come on to me and they know I'm married. And they don't, I sit there sometimes and I go, why are you doing that, right? Because I certainly ain't no Brad Pitt, okay? But I think some of them suspect I have money. And I know that's why they're coming on. And I'm not talking 50-year-olds, I'm talking 20-year-olds. I hate it, right? And that's why the real value men, the high value ones, are going to hide that. They're not going to be doing what you talked about, being players. I was a player in my 20s. I don't hide it.
In your 20s, sure, in our 20s,
I, I, you
we were
know,
all running
I
around.
was a redheaded model. I had, I did okay with the women, but that was a bad thing. I'm not saying that to brag. I'm saying it was a
It was all part of your journey
it
to achieve
was, but it was
the point that
also
you're at now.
it was me mistakenly thinking that was going to heal me from the damage of my childhood, right?
Bingo.
And it failed. And
Bingo.
ultimately, I had to grow up and learn all that. But that's what's happening, I think, in a broader sense, like you're talking about in the dating scene, is that if I were single now and a woman asked me what I did for a living or how much I had in the bank, Instant deal breaker. Because now she's telling me all she cares about is my money, not what I am as a person. And that's why the
Women
guys are saying that to you.
women are getting that too now. Now the men have understood that the women are making bank off them. Now
Yep.
they're going to do the same. And I have had lots of men wanting to know whether I'm rich or poor. One NFL guy I went out with said, I can't tell. You drive that beat up car. I can't tell because it was a New York car.
Mm-hmm.
And I can't tell if you have money or you don't. And I said, so what is the question? And why are you asking this? You see, when we get to the point, and I think we're pretty far from that right now, but when we get to the point where we can say, um, I want to find somebody who shares my essence, somebody who understands me intellectually, emotionally, spiritually. When we find that, all this other stuff doesn't make a difference.
And that's
But
the key right
but
there.
but to hear, one guy said he wanted to get married. I was getting this talk show on television, national television, syndicated, all of the bells and whistles, and he said, I want to get married on your talk show because it'll be so good for my business. Well, you know what? Bye. See ya.
Yeah,
That was
really. It's interesting because I've you'll probably laugh at this. So I have people say to me, "Well, why are you married?" Right? Well, I found one of the unicorns out there. Well, how did you?
yay.
The question I get is, "How did you know?" And I'll tell you exactly how I knew she was the one. So when we met, she hit all the right buttons, but I always had that doubt in my mind. Okay, and then now I was working as a high level, C-suite level technology, chief technology officer. I lost my job. I got downsized out. I went from making multiple six figures to zero. Well, I got $400 a week from New York State unemployment. And she didn't bat an eye. She was there to support me. She did everything I could have ever asked for. Because when you lose a job, it's just, you're mourning, right? You're going
Oh,
through grief.
men especially,
She
because
she
they are
was
their jobs.
and she went out of her way to make sure that I knew multiple times that she couldn't care less that I went from making multiple six figures to $400 a week, right? Because I was what unemployment was at the time. That's when I knew, right? And there were other things too, but that was the one that really cemented it for me because that told me right then and there money was irrelevant, right? And then ultimately, a few years later, I said, you know what? I'm done with the corporate world. It's killing me. I'm going to go open some gyms. And the first couple of years, we lost a shit ton of money,
Of
right?
course,
A,
business.
a lot, like multiple six figures. Ultimately, we turned it around and we're hugely successful. But she was my partner in that. She 100% supported me all through it. I always say to
Said
guys,
the word partner.
partner. She facilitated my dreams. That's why I married her. That's why I am still married to her. She is everything that I could ever want. And
That is so beautiful.
that's what guys need to look for. And by the way, I would argue that's what women need to look for. Forget the money.
We all need to look for that.
Yeah.
But how many of us are looking anymore?
That's the point, right? There
Yeah.
we get so focused on minutia. Stupid stuff. Who cares how much money you make? Who cares what your job title is?
Well, money comes and goes.
It
And
absolutely does.
we talk about all these celebrities. I mean, hell, I met and went out with so many of them, and we talk about them as being these great beings, and then when you come to meet them, they are what I call, a lot of them that I've gone out with, what I call a Cheerio. Solid on the outside, as so it seems, but vacuous on the inside.
Mm-hmm.
Inside. And I need a lot more than that. So, and I think everybody does. But you also said something that I was interested in apropos of the book. You said that you were upset that I named, because I named men
Oh yeah.
who have stood up to controversy, and I've named those as real men. And you took exception with one. Why don't you tell me
Yeah,
that?
so in general I agreed with everyone that you posted, right? Until I got to my good friend and yours, Ted Sarandis of
I've
Netflix.
never met him.
Okay. Well, I'm being sarcastic with my good friend. I despise the man with every fiber of my being. Okay.
Why?
And I'll tell you why. So, and it's the reason, and you know, I'm just respectfully challenging you on all this, right?
Right, that's okay.
Because you spoke as him as, you held him out as a beacon of light, if you will, right? As something men to look up to. I say he's nothing more than a radical feminist simp beta whose main focus in life is pushing a false narrative and frankly outright propaganda. And the reason I say that, and truthfully, and I believe it, is if you go, and I did a whole video on this. If you go and look at the show Adolescence, which came out
Yes.
a few months ago, right?
Yeah.
That is as anti-male, anti-boy a drama because it's not based on reality, and yet it's now going to be used in curriculum in some of the EU countries. That's going to be shown to boys and girls. So when you say, and here's why I took umbrage with you, is that it wasn't that the show necessarily was on Netflix. That's a problem, obviously. But what I, in particular, about him is he was so effusive about it. So he was on talk shows and news shows. This is what men need to be. And I'm sitting
Why
there
don't you
going,
tell everybody what his role is? Some people may not know the
he's the
name.
co-CEO, right?
Oh, CEO.
Co-CEO of Netflix, right? So,
Yes.
when I see that and I realize what he's doing, he's the absolute antithesis of what I think should be a good role model for a man. And you held some other ones out that are amazing, right? Is we should be calling him out as non-male. Give me your thoughts and feel free. I can take it. Go for it.
Well, I picked him as one of the men who I feel is a real man because when Dave Chappelle had this special on Netflix and he said some negative things about the trans community, and the trans community screamed and yelled and jumped and had fits. He said, Netflix is not for everybody, but we want to provide something for everyone if they so choose. And I have been in the media for a long time, and I have seen how the media giants kowtow to the screaming maniacs. And this is one man who did not. He stood up and he said, then this might not be the right network for you. And he said that also to some of his employees who were storming. They said they didn't want this on air and so on and so forth. And he stood his ground that he wanted to provide for the universe, whether they agreed or not, different points of view. And it was that stand
Okay.
that I was impressed with. Not, I'm not talking about what Dave Chappelle said, what adolescence does, and what that has led to. I am fearful that when we cover our mouths with information that we have, then the information does not get out, and we as a society are less knowledgeable and less touched, positively or negatively, by whatever comes out. That's the reason. It was his stand against everything else I have seen media executives fold for.
And those are all fair points, right? And I can respect him for that. And I remember when
But
that
that's it.
happened, right?
That's it.
But the other side of it is he's talking out of both sides of his mouth because he does not allow people like you and me on Netflix, right? I know of
I don't
producers.
know. I've never tried to get on
I,
Netflix.
I, I know of producers who have done documentaries and pitched them. They will not allow them that are on men's issues. right?
on men's issues?
Yeah, they will not allow them. They won't even take it. What one of the things I've talked about, not to get too far in the
Okay.
weed,
Okay,
is
wait,
I
wait, wait.
go ahead.
Let's
Let's do it.
Ted Ted Sarandos, if you're watching this, here's a book for you.
Let's do it.
Real men don't go woke. This is a love letter to men, but it also takes apart what's happening to our men. Do you dare cover this in any which way? And do you dare allow this man, Dan, who has this wonderful podcast, Men Need to Be Heard, to voice his feelings about men and what has happened to them so that we can prevent suicides?
And that's ultimately the goal for I think for both of us. 100 men a day are killing themselves in just the United States. You know,
It
if we
cannot continue.
it,
We must show men that they have an alternative way of presenting themselves and being heard without being canceled or castrated. We must provide that because nobody else is providing that. How can we do it? We need the help of a Ted Sarandos. We need the help of other CEOs who are willing to take the leap and talk about this. So far, as I'm watching media, I consume a lot of media and I'm on a lot of media. But so far, people are finally acknowledging that the death toll, the suicide rate of men is extraordinarily high and it's got to change. But so far, nobody is writing about it or doing anything. We are told we cannot publish this material. We are told we cannot speak about this material. And we need you to help us.
amen to that. You know, it's I've long argued, and I was talking with a couple of producers myself that they have their little 8 episode documentary type things. We should do that on men's issues where we do one issue in each one, and
Amen.
one of them would be
Amen.
suicide. It could be whatever, right? But we've tried. It's gone nowhere so far. So maybe you and I should team
Well,
up.
so you say so far,
So
but
far,
I think we are at the point today. I mean, listen, we're even at the point of having a woman as a spokesperson for the International Council for Men and Boys.
which
So maybe we have come a little bit further for all of us to understand we need our men. Women are feeling this emptiness without real men, without the testosterone around us who are able to talk to us and share their real feelings, not giving us this garbage pap that we're not interested in even hearing. But we want to know what your real souls are like. I want to know what a man's real soul is like. I want to be his partner, his friend, but I want to also contribute so that I'm not shut out either.
and that
It's
that
got to be a two-way
that's the
street.
key, and that's why I talk about my marriage all the time because it is a 2-way street, right? We can say anything to each other. We may not like some of it. Like
Well,
my
you
wife
bet.
said something to me the other day that really pissed me off, but that's okay. Doesn't mean I love her any less. Doesn't mean I have
Mhm.
any less respect for her. We just disagree on that particular point. In the scheme of life, 20 years from now, we won't even remember it, right? It was so minor. That's the
So
type
I
of thing.
think we are inching there. And it takes such a long time. Sociometrically, it takes so long for the pendulum to swing in one direction and swing in another. We have seen it swing with men. A man walks out the door and he's automatically called toxic. I mean, he didn't even open his mouth. He didn't even do anything. He's called toxic. So what does he do? The pendulum swings to the opposite
And
side.
that's my
And
fear,
now he's
right?
become woke.
Yeah.
And now he's shut down entirely. He's not a man anymore. He's not a human anymore.
That
He is just shutting up.
that's my real fear is like you're talking about the pendulum, right? It has swung so far one way to the point now we're at the
But
point now where it's a risk for a man to even be out in public because the false allegations are so rampant.
a
My
PhD told me he just lost his job because he spoke up at work.
It's all it
And he
takes.
thanked me for being the voice of men. I want to be, I want to eliminate my role in this and I want men to be their own voices. But I'm just starting to show them the way.
Well, I mean, it goes back to what we're talking about. Is someone like you and me, right? Here on this podcast, we've partnered up. We may not agree on everything, and that's okay, right? What we agree on a lot, I would say, let's just not throwing numbers out, 80 to 90%, we probably agree on.
Probably, yeah.
And who cares about the 10%? We can have dialogue on it, we can discuss it. Doesn't mean that it's a bad thing that we don't agree 100%.
How do you feel about Bill Maher?
One, he makes me laugh all the time. So I'm kind of jaded that way. I don't know if you saw his recent thing about men. I think it was last Friday's episode. I thought he did really good with it. I also think he blew it in some ways, right? And I'm going to be doing a video on it. I think in a lot of respects, he gets it. He's trying to speak out to what you're talking about, but the message in his case is from the left too far, right? And but he's coming back to the middle. And I see. By the way, I could say the same thing on the other side. Somebody like Charlie Kirk or Matt Walsh, they're out there. They're speaking about men's issues, but they can't get their politics out of it, right? And
Well, you see, I think Bill Maher is brilliant. I think he knows relationships. I read his book, his most recent book. I think he's just genius. And then he said at the very end, "Listen, I've had writers, so how much of this is mine?" But he does deliver the material very well. He does understand about men and women. I do not agree with his politics,
right,
but that's okay. That's okay. But I think he is brilliant, and I think he is a real man because he's willing to speak his mind and get screwed over by the left when he doesn't line up as he's supposed to.
right.
And I think that by my definition of a real man, he's a real man.
Yeah, I mean, I probably disagree with him politically on 80 to 90% of it, but I respect him for exactly the reason you talked about.
That's where
He's willing to call it out even when he's wrong, right? That's to me the definition of a real man, right? And
he
it's
has
what
told all these little wussies. He said, if you want to get with a woman, talk to her. Forget about the stupid text messages. Forget about the other ways of communication that you're trying. You talk. Just talk to her. And you know, he is so right on this topic. He really knows love relationships. And it's interesting because he's never been
I was
married.
going to say. He's not married and never had kids, and
Right.
but the other side of that is women have to be willing to listen to men too, right? And that's the problem is from the male
Men
perspective.
need to be heard. I
Right.
mean,
I mean, I talk all the time, and a lot of what I do, my audience is about 90% male. And I do resonate with some women, but most women do this instantly.
why? Well, that's
They don't
pretty.
want to hear because I'm making them uncomfortable. It's exactly what I talked about your book did to me at sometimes. It made me uncomfortable. I view it as a good thing, right? Women, and I'm going to generalize, and you can jump on me for that, but women in general don't like that. They get up in their fifis, their feelings. Oh my God, this mean old bald man with, grandpa, and all, they just come at me with
I had,
everything.
I had told an army pilot, a fighter pilot, that I found him most attractive when he was most vulnerable, and he thought I was cursing at him. He said,
Uh,
"What? I don't. What do you mean by that? That's not right."
I
I said,
Oh
"It's
yeah, it's
one.
nothing. That's like the biggest insult ever, Doctor Gilda. Because I'll tell you why. I have a very dear friend. My best friend in the world happens to be a woman who's as blunt as you are. Okay, and she calls me a big teddy bear, and I'm like, stop insulting me. I am not a teddy bear. Okay, and it's all playful and
You
stuff.
see?
Yeah, but it is. It's like that. All right, we are running out of time. I want to wrap things up. I have a question that I ask everyone, and I want to ask
Okay,
you. All right.
okay.
If you could snap your fingers and change one thing, just one, about the world overnight, what would it be?
Listening is the most beautiful thing we can do for one another. I would say, shut your damn mouth. We have two ears, one mouth. Start listening to one another and allow what you hear to affect you in every which way in your body because you will learn stuff and you will expand yourself.
I'm like verklempt a little because I love what you just said. So, all right, how? Because they've got to. How can they go follow you? How can they get the book? All that stuff.
Okay, the book is on Amazon. Once again, it's Real Men Don't Go Woke. Look at some of the beautiful testimonials that I have on Amazon, and you can follow me. I hang out a lot on LinkedIn, but I'm also on X, and I'm on everything. So you can find me. And my website is drgilda.com, drgilda.com, and I provide interpersonal coaching that is all strategic. So it's not just, well, I think you ought to do this, I think you ought to do that. No, it's all strategized based on research and science that has worked.
And I will put links down in the show notes to all of that stuff. And I highly encourage you to go read that book. It's one of the best I've ever read, and I'm not just
Thank
saying
you
that.
so much, Dan.
And I have partially written my Amazon review, just so you know. I
Oh,
haven't
thank
finished
you.
it yet, so I'm going to be doing that also. Before we go, any final thought that you want to share with the audience?
I love men. And unlike some of the women out there who are anti male, for whatever reasons, I don't know. Maybe their father beat them, maybe their uncle sexually abused them. I don't know. But the time is right now, to say a moratorium on all of that. Ask yourself, is this the way I want to continue living my life? Is this the burden I wish to continue carrying for the rest of my life? And if the answer is no, then the time is now. Turn the page. Everything that we're living now is just a page, and it can be turned to tomorrow to make that a much better, brighter future for yourself.
That is so beautiful. Again, you got me verklempt again. Stop it. Okay. You're making the teddy bear come out. All right. Well, I want to thank you for coming on and sharing your thoughts and your wisdom. And again, I want to personally thank you for writing that book. And like I said, touching me in every way possible. Made me feel good, made me feel mad, made me feel bad, all of that stuff. That is the hallmark of quality books, reading, whatever material you want to use, that you can touch someone like that. And again, I'm not just saying that, people. Go get the book. So thank you for coming on
Thank
the
you
show and
so
for writing the
much.
book.
Ted Sarandos, listen to that.
We're going to get them. All right. On that note, we're going to go ahead and wrap things up. And again, a huge thank you to Dr. Gilda Carle for joining me today. Whether you agreed with every word that we said or found yourself fired up, like I said, that's a good thing. That's what we want to do. That's how you know that what we're talking about, the advice that we're giving, is worth something. It's if it makes you think, if it makes you question, maybe even makes you a little uncomfortable, that means it's hitting a nerve that probably needed to be hit. So again, I cannot recommend enough that you go and pick up her book. Real Men Don't Go Woke. I'll put links down in the show notes, which will do all of what I just said and more. And honestly, I do think will make your life better, men. Listen to me. If you want a better life, go get this book. It's a kind of bold, unapologetic message sent to men in a way that men can understand it, that we need to hear in a culture that, frankly, we all know is trying to beat us down, right? And hey, if you enjoyed this episode, if it made you think, please share it with a brother who could use it. And if this is your first time watching, don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe to the channel as I release new videos every day on the issues that men and boys face in today's society. Stay sharp, stay unapologetic, and never be afraid to ask the hard questions yourself. Till next time, thanks for watching, and we'll see you again on Men Need to Be Heard.